Hey guys, here at Gracie Schwartzwald, and I'm going to discuss something I wrote about this a while back, but I actually wanted to do a kind of a video even discussing it further, which is the Demian Maia Askren fight that happened recently, and some really interesting things that I saw during that fight. This is both a dream matchup for me and really sad for me because I really like both fighters. I like their styles. I like what they bring to MMA. And I was really sad, of course, that one of them was going to have to lose, especially because there'd be a lot of people online, whichever one of them lost would say, oh, he was never that good. Both of them are elite level, and I really like to see specialists in MMA. Just kind of the generic, sort of good at everything kind of guy doesn't interest me that much. And especially because both have unique styles. It's not just BJJ versus wrestling, it's a specific kind of BJJ and a specific kind of wrestling especially. So one of the things anybody who trains with me knows that I hate is when people say, oh, this is the best technique, that is the best technique, or this is the best version of a technique, this is the best version of a technique. It's a very limited way to think of combat sports. What is best will change depending on the scenario. For instance, I saw a video of a cop taking somebody down in the street recently, and some of the comments were like, it was a bad double leg because he kind of did a double leg because he didn't drop his knee like you're supposed to. And this is on pavement. And they were mad that the guy didn't drop his knee on the pavement because they're thinking wrestling, right? And this is a bad wrestling shot because he didn't do this. And it's just showing that limited understanding of how you adapt what you do. For me, I'm not an elite athlete, and I'm not somebody who tries to learn 10,000 moves. So what I try to do is understand how you can take the techniques you do know and understand them completely so that you can adapt them, to different scenarios, whether it's MMA, whether it's sport jiu-jitsu, whether it's self-defense, whether it's military or police combatives. You can actually take the same kind of technique system and just change it rather than having to learn a whole new technique system. So we're going to break this down, this fight, kind of into the three areas which comprise modern MMA, which is the striking, the clinch work, and the groundwork. And all three were really fascinating, not for the techniques they used, but for the strategy, the reason that they used the techniques they did. Okay, so if you judge MMA by boxing, you'll say it's bad. Right? But that's because MMA strikers have to deal with different threats than the boxer does. So it's bad boxing, but that's because they're not boxing. They have to worry about, leg kicks and takedowns and elbows and all sorts of things. So in this fight, I will say that I think Maia came prepared with a strategy to deal with Askren better than Askren came with a strategy to deal with Maia. That said, people who think that Maia kind of blew Askren out of the water, that's only because of the submission. If it had gone the full fight and gone to a decision, honestly, I don't know who would have won. Both of them were, I thought, fairly equal with the striking, fairly equal with the clinch work. Askren was obviously getting takedowns. Maia was able to, not take any damage on the ground. So we'll discuss that as we go. Like I said, the thing I like is really intelligent fighters and understanding why they do what they do. I wrote about this recently with Ryan Hall's MMA and Jordan Burroughs' footwork. They're doing specific things to exploit their strengths and limit their weaknesses. So the first thing we want to talk about is, let me get you on this side, is the fight happened from an open stance. So have your right leg forward. Okay. Now, I'm going to switch the positions because Maia is left-handed, okay, and Askren is right-handed, but for now I'll pretend to be Maia, and he'll be Askren, and we'll just reverse the footwork. Okay, so they're fighting for this stance. The one thing that you'll see, we'll talk first about Maia, that Maia was doing really well was, what he had to understand was the big danger from Askren obviously is the takedown. Okay? Now what Askren does differently with the takedowns is he doesn't really drop low for shots. So he doesn't do the classic drop your level super low, shoot your knee in, kind of takedown. He actually works to more or less upper body clinches, or if he takes down, for double legs, he bends over at the waist kind of wrong, but what that sort of shot allows is for him to easily come back up high, versus if I shoot low and I come in this way, now I'm stuck underneath, maybe sprawled, and then I'm trying to fight back up. It's a lot harder. Okay, so he works a lot from the clinching from standing, and despite the knockout Masvidal, he has a really hard head. So what he'll do a lot is when he throws a punch, he's looking to either slip the punch, duck just below the punch, or he'll even just kind of eat the punch and still come in and get the clinch. And when he gets the clinch against Askren, you're in a lot of trouble. So Maia knows this, and if he'd just been throwing the punches at the head, eventually Askren's going to get in. And if he's not throwing the punches, he's going to lose the referee's scorecard because he's not throwing a lot. He needs to throw a lot of volume strikes to look good on the referee's card. So how do you throw a lot of volume strikes but not get here? First, he was fighting from a lower stance, and where he was throwing was throw to my head. Yeah, he's going to get in on this. He was throwing a lot to the chest. It's a lot harder to eat that punch and still get to the guy. You can't slip it. It's a lot harder to get underneath. So you saw a lot of time where he was punching either right at the bottom of the jaw or right to the chest. And again, he was keeping his body a little bit lower, so it's harder for him to get in. So for me, that was a really intelligent decision on Maia's part. It's to not just try to wear the head out, because trying to wear the head out on Askren, you're going to deal with that. So I thought that was a really smart, effective use. The other thing he was doing is if he had just been kind of throwing out lazy punches, eventually Askren would just kind of wade through those too. When he was throwing those punches, he was throwing them but hurt. He was throwing them hard. Okay, this would eventually back Askren off or make him worried about every time he's going in, he's getting hit hard versus just kind of peppering him light shots. So that was a lot of what Maia was doing. That was really intelligent. Here's where I thought Askren had a great game plan. So if you're watching the early UFC, Royce was keeping his hand out here a lot. And then people were like, that's stupid, you need to keep your hands back, like traditional boxing. And now you're seeing people going back to this, because this is very good for Muay Thai, boxing, things like this. It's not good for MMA. Because right now, if I'm here, you see John Jones, Conor McGregor, all these guys using this, Stephen Thompson. He tries to get to me. Yeah, I'm able to keep the distance a lot more. I'm able to check his distance, make him have to cross a much greater fear. If I'm here, he can get in a lot closer when we're punching. Okay, so even here, he's trying to hit me. I'm a lot further away. Try to get with your power hand. Yeah, see how I'm able to stay away. So that's why you're seeing that coming back more. Now, the interesting thing is this. Switch your stance, please. This way. So they were fighting open stance. Again, we're reversing our hands. So you'll be Maia and Askren. What Askren was doing that even the announcer commented on, which was he was missing the point, was he was constantly checking this hand. He was constantly working this hand. The reason being is he didn't want to keep dealing with his jab, right? He only wants to deal with the one punch because, again, that one punch, the idea is eventually if he goes to the head, he's going to slip, he's going to get in on this punch, versus now you got to deal with the lead jab, lead hook, all these things. So he's constantly doing this. This also means, so here, this means he really only has to do with that one weapon, and that's where he's getting a lot of his clinches off of. It also was a really good strategy because of this. When he would throw his punch, he was able to check this hand out of the way. And when he would throw, he would cover, or he'd get hit. When Maia would cover, get hit, boom, then he was going to his clinch with his other hand, because that's really what he wanted. He just wanted to come in, get to his clinch. We'll talk about that in a second. So it's a nice category. We're here, he's punching, check, he's here, I can get in, or I come in and then boom, here. Okay, so he was using this to funnel the whole action over here. Okay, versus I'm here and I've got to do all of this. Okay. So for me, that was a really intelligent way for Askren to do this. So another thing that I like to see is a couple things that I really like from Askren, which was when he was getting into the clinches, and we'll talk about the clinch work in a second. A lot of times he's here, he really likes to work from the dirty boxing here. what was happening was as he would go in, Maia was ducking out. So he'd come in and then he'd go, Maia would duck out. So what he started doing was here, getting in and starting to throw uppercuts, making it harder for Maia to duck out. So I really like that. The other thing that I really like that Askren did, that not a lot of strikers do, is when they get into the clinch, and the one guy escapes, you know, sometimes you see guys just try to throw a big knockout punch and then just let the guy off. What Askren really does a lot, he doesn't hit as hard, but is as he gets out, Askren would just keep following, keep moving, and just keep peppering him, following him here. And you could see it actually confused Maia one time because he kept getting hit and just backing up. He's like, why won't he stop? So it was really smart because it doesn't look like Askren hits hard, but he does hit a lot of volume. So he messed up Maia's face pretty good just because of just those volumes of just constantly touching that face. Okay, so now we'll go into the striking for Askren was to get to the clinch. What Maia did that was fantastic was his anti-clinch work. These days, a lot of times, if you do MMA, they teach you to wrestle, and when you get into the wrestling situation against a wrestler, you're either going to try to wrestle him back, which means, you know, we're here, and then I'm pummeling, and then he's going to the single leg, and maybe I'm dropping, and I'm doing all this. And it's kind of like defending the side mount escape after the guy already has, defending the side mount after the guy already has you locked down in side control, versus not letting the guy actually settle into side control. So let's talk about this again. So what was happening was first, Askren was doing a fantastic job of working from 3 positions. He would come in, he would go to a left collar, single collar tie, here and start working. Or he would go for a left whizzer and same thing. Or if the guy got his arm through, there's times he went into a Russian 2-on-1 and was working from here. Okay. All of these really lead into a lot of Askren's favorite takedowns. So how was Maia stopping it? So let's talk about right here. This was the one he really liked. What Askren really wants to do is he wants to get this underhook and then lock and over-under. Okay, and this is where you see he gets a lot of his takedowns, and eventually he got a takedown on Maia when he finally got to this position. He was able to turn and run him down. Okay, from here, he's able to get here and work different kinds of takedowns from these positions. So what Maia understood that was really intelligent was the battle was on this side. Whether he had this or this, what Maia was doing is keeping that elbow tight and fighting off this arm so he couldn't get the underhook. On here, Askren was never in a position to really lock his hands. And then he was doing a really good job of dominating head position. That was what was really impressive against a wrestler like Askren. Askren would be here, he was blocking that arm out. Also makes it harder for me to hit, and then he would escape out. So every time that he came in, boom, got in here, yeah, he's controlling that arm, not letting Askren get in, and then he's able to get out. When he slipped to here, same exact thing, he's blocking that off. And then when he got to here, he was dominating the head and framing off and getting out of here. So he really understood that this other side was the battle, and that's where the intelligence comes in, and that's where the game planning comes in. Again, eventually, Askren did get to this and a few other takedowns. And, but that anti-clinch work is what happened, which really was intelligent, which was you don't see a lot in MMA. You see guys kind of trying to counter wrestle, but not really denying the clinches. They get stuck in the clinches or the takedown positions, and then they got to fight out of it. Now, of course, the fact that they're fighting upper body makes this a little easier. Where Askren is really good is the fact that he can drop down. And the other thing about Askren going to the upper body clinch is it's much easier to drop low than it is to shoot low and work back up high. So he was working into all of this because he can go here, he can go here, and he can go here. Okay, and so I thought Maia did a fantastic job of denying Askren the positions he wanted in an intelligent way. Okay, so again, it was all about this other side fighting, and then just getting out, and then getting back to the striking position again. So again, one of the advantages that I think getting into the upper body clinches and takedown game that Askren likes is he can always still strike from these positions. But again, you know, Maia is as a BJJ guy, he's actually one of the best takedown guys in MMA. He's taken down a lot of very good wrestlers. So to see the ease with which Askren took him down just shows kind of what a level Askren is on. And really a lot of it comes down to just being able to change levels and change direction and constantly spiraling versus just trying to run a guy over. As just an example was the last takedown I thought was really nice where he got into the single collar tie and they're playing here and he dropped to the single. Okay? And as this wasn't working, he's going to come up, he's fighting the single, and rather than stay here low where you start to sprawl out, where he's going to have to fight this, as he came up, he comes back up, controls the head, keeps the leg, and takes him down this way. So it's a really nice kind of, he was working this takedown. He had the single collar tie. He was trying to hook the leg and take him this way. So, because he'd done kind of an upper, lower body one. He's here, he hooks the leg, he can't get it, drops here, it's not working, he comes back up, takes. And just as a sequence, it's a really beautiful sequence. Okay. So now we're going to go into the groundwork. And this is where, I remember a lot of people before the fight saying, you know, Maia doesn't work well from underneath, Askren's going to be on top, Askren can ride very well, it's going to be, if Maia ends up underneath, he'll lose. So, I know one of the announcers said, you know, Askren had been working with some high-level BJJ guy in preparation for this fight. And when I hear that, that's almost meaningless, right? Because guys will go out and they'll go to some famous academy and they'll train with some jiu-jitsu people, but it's not the right jiu-jitsu for MMA. So it's kind of not pointless, but it's not really preparing you in my mind. You have to prepare the right kind of jiu-jitsu. You know, it's the same way that Marola Bustamante, when they asked him to fight in the luta livre versus jiu-jitsu fights, you know, he was prepared right then. You know, whereas if you ask like a Paulo Miao to fight MMA, he's going to need a long time because he just doesn't have the right skill sets. His style of jiu-jitsu is not the right style of jiu-jitsu for fighting. So Demian Maia has a very good MMA style of jiu-jitsu. Just grabbing some guy who's won a lot of sport tournaments isn't necessarily going to be the best preparation. Okay, and also Maia understood, I think, prepared for a wrestler. And I think a lot of wrestlers give jiu-jitsu people and even MMA jiu-jitsu people problems because they're trying to solve a problem the wrong way. A great example of this is how Khabib gives so many people trouble. And Maia himself actually gives people trouble. So you should lay down. So the problem is this. Whether it's butterfly guard or, we'll talk about closed guard in a second, or feet on the hips. Most jiu-jitsu guys, now they end up on bottom, and they're either going to try to do a few things. They're either going to try to submit from here, you know, from some sort of position, or they're going to try to kick the guy away, push the guy away, get back up to their feet, or they're going to try to walk their body up to the cage and get up this way. The problem is, by holding me, whether it's his feet or knees, here, one, I can let him carry my weight. So he's supporting my lower body, which means what? My arms are free to strike the whole time. Okay, because you're supporting me and you're letting me have my support. So my arms are free, okay? And this is just exhausting. So you're trying to push me away, and then I'm starting to hip in, and you're trying here, this way. And whether it's, or butterfly, or here, sorry. Here, and then I'm trying to hit you, you're holding me up, and then I can start to fold. And this is the sort of modern game of people trying to push away, get to their feet. And again, the whole problem with that is, again, he's basically being my lower body submission, my lower body control. And not only that, but if he does go for a submission, like an arm lock, okay, I'm able to either hip in, out of it, or because my legs are here, maybe I can pull out. And then you see this all the time, right? Okay. Because again, you're letting me have my base. My hands are free. My hands don't have to do anything, therefore they can damage you. So what Maia did, and I wrote about this once with Pedro Sauer when he fought Lance Betcher, did the same thing. He went to butterfly guard, a lot, come a little bit this way. Which, again, is funny because I've been told for many years, butterfly guard doesn't work, and yet you see it all the time in MMA. Okay, so it doesn't work maybe in sport tournaments, but it certainly works in MMA. If I come here, same thing, if he's holding me up, I can hit. What he was doing, come this way just a little bit, was he was pulling Askren forward. So get underneath my arms, and he's pulling him here and holding him up. Now, Askren's hands are on the ground, he can't punch. Okay, if you let me settle back, then we're here. So he did a good job of every time rocking him forward and then keeping his hands on the mat. Now I can't punch. And it's very hard to pass as well. I mean, you can leg fold, but that was actually going to be difficult. The other thing it allows, so first time he got the takedown, he comes in, he gets a takedown. If Maia had tried to push him away, so as I push you away, go to your feet. As I push you away, and then just keep all your weight on. There you go, and then start damage. This is where Askren is really dangerous. Okay? Versus he takes him down, and he comes here. Okay. The other thing is this. Now you can start going to X guard and single leg X. So we'll talk about that a little bit. But the whole point is, by forcing Askren to always have his weight on his hands, he didn't have to worry about taking damage from strikes. Okay? And again, most guys do the exact opposite. They let the guy have his base. They even support him so that his upper body is completely free. And that's why you get the guys just smothering and damaging and punching. All right, so the other thing that happens is, get you to stand back up, please. You know, I'm here, I'm holding him up. Maybe I try to go for a submission. He pops out of it. You know, then the guys are forced to turtle. And when he comes in, especially Askren, he's going to come in, get the one-on-one. You know, then maybe you get beat up for a while, then maybe you either flop to here to side control, or you get lucky, you get back to guard. He pops back up to his feet, puts all his weight here, and we're back to this. And it's the same thing over and over until the guy on the bottom is exhausted. So rather than try to kick away, wall walk, which again, doing kicking away, getting up to your feet against Askren is not going to work because he's going to just mat return you over and over and over again. You saw it in a lot of his old fights. What he did was he swept Askren. He focused on sweeps, which I just don't think jiu-jitsu people do enough in MMA. Now, if you're going to try to do, you know, just a scissor sweep against Askren, unless you're Marcelo Garcia, you're not going to hit it. Okay. So what he had to do was constantly, one, make sure that Askren never had his base. The moment that Askren could settle on his feet, he's going to start unloading and punching. So first, he came here, he brought him up, and then he went to like a single leg X. Go ahead, stand up. And turn this way. So right now, if he's trying to hit me, and I'm just here, that's one thing. What he's constantly doing is upsetting his base. Now most guys, you'll see this a lot in MMA, they'll try to go now just for like the heel hook. Okay, that's the only thing they're focused on. They get here, they just want the submission. The problem is, and guys have tried this on Askren, he turns the other way, he steps out, kicks out, maybe it settles down inside, and then you're getting beat up. They're just focused on, again, trying to get the submission staying underneath. What Maia was doing, which was really intelligent, was he was focused on using this weapon as a sweep. So if he keeps the knee inside, yeah, he's going to start to set up the heel hook. So most guys will turn the knee out to defend this, and then he's dumping them back and down to the ground with the single leg X sweep. The other thing was constantly here. He even tried to go to X guard at one point, just because he's trying to hit me. He's constantly keeping his balance, see how he can't let him ever settle so he can strike. So he's either unbalancing him, or if he comes back down, he's getting his hands here, and again, he's here, he's constantly unbalancing him. Okay, he didn't just let the guy settle his weight or try to push him away. And that was the really intelligent thing he was doing, was never let him have the ability to settle and with his hands off the mat and his weight on top of him. Constantly upsetting his balance, hitting the sweeps. The other thing he was doing is, you'll see this a lot of times in MMA, guys are getting beat up, or they're getting here, and then they'll go to guard, and and then they'll start your game plan. Well, now you're here, you're trying to do a submission, the guy's posturing, powering out of this, and here. It's dumb, you're letting the guy have a chance to survive. What Askren was really good about was when he was getting the positions, as soon as he got the guard, he was already attacking. Right? He was attacking before he had the guard, not after. So again, Askren was never having a chance to settle. So he went to the triangle, for instance, at one point. I think he set it up off the pass. Askren's pinning the knee. All his weight is forward. He shot the triangle. Here, Askren postured up. He went to the omoplata, and again, he gave him that dilemma. Either get caught in the omoplata or roll out. He came in, he rolled out, and he came on top. So he had the omoplata roll at one point, and the single leg axe sweep, both times to get on top. He got stuck underneath side control a couple times, and this was interesting because Askren's game, a lot of times is from half guard, but you can do it from side control. You go to the single leg, come up, stand up with the single leg, run the guy down. But this absolutely isn't going to work against Askren. So he went, people will say, he blew him out of the water. In both first and second round, Askren was actually in a really dominant position, and in some ways Maia got saved by that. First round, he ended up stuck underneath here, and actually in the second, he kind of ended up with Askren in a north-south position. But the first time, the single leg just saved, going to the single leg just saved him because the time ran out. The second time, which was really nice, he got the side control, and Maia got to the single leg, came up, Askren started sprawling back, trying to work, and what Maia did was rather than fight from here, he got to his feet and backed away and backed out. So really intelligent. Rather than trying to wrestle a superior wrestler, he's very good at getting to the single leg. He knew he wasn't going to finish the single leg. So rather than, he still used what he was good at, but then he backed out, which I thought was really intelligent, rather than trying to continue grappling in Askren's world. Okay, so the big focus is there was really keeping Askren's hands on the mat, or if he can't get his hands on the mat, constantly destabilizing him with the threat of a couple submissions, the omoplata and the heel hook, and then coming on top. Now, Askren, however, did not do the same on the bottom. So when Maia got on top, Askren was just here. Maia was able to fold the legs, start working into the passing procedures, my favorite passing as well. One thing I noticed that Maia did that was really great, and again, understanding the threat. When he mounted, he left the foot here. Instead of just going to mount, because the first time he mounted, Askren was actually able to just kind of sit up and get up out of the position. Kind of a crazy wrestler's escape, sort of an old school Fedor type escape. And when I'm this way, you can sit up this way, you can sit up this way, you can roll this way, you can roll this way, right? And they go this, which way you're going to roll. So he's controlling which way he's going to go. Not only that, when he goes, go to your knees, for instance. You notice I already have a hook in, right? So that's really nice. He's already letting him come up with a hook. But let's talk about this. They come up. He kind of came up. He had the hook in. Let's go this way a little bit. So it's kind of the end of the situation. He has the hook in. Turn this way. Okay? And this is where you get into, let's go back just a little bit. Something I tell my students all the time. When you roll, you have to analyze your opponent. If I'm throwing a jab, if he throws a jab at me, and every time I slip it, just here, rather than check it, your follow-up should take that into account, right? If I do this, then you follow, yeah. Versus if I checked it, maybe you have to do something different, right? Same thing in grappling. If every time you pass, I try to recompose guard, you adjust the finish of your pass for me. If I roll away, you need to adjust the pass. Sometimes I see guys that keep doing the same pass, because that's the one they're taught, without understanding how the guy will react. So, a lot of guys these days now, and I do it too, but I've done it for years, they love the one-on-one, okay, when they take the back. And this is a situation, Khabib has really made it really famous now. He bumps the guys down, hits the one-on-one, and just beats them up from here because they can't turn to guard, they have a lot of trouble, okay? And, Askren himself has made a living off that one-on-one in MMA. But what's nice is if you understand how what they're afraid of, you can deal with that. Jiu-jitsu guys get caught in the one-on-one all the time because they keep this arm back here because they're afraid of the second hook. And that's when that one-on-one comes in. Okay? Whereas Askren is afraid of the one-on-one, so Maia went for it, and Askren shot his arm up here. Yeah. And then he got that hook in. So he baited the hook versus just trying to shoot a hook in. He went here, he understood that Askren was very afraid of this. He shot the hook in, got the back, and then worked for the finish. So that was a situation of understanding how to exploit your opponent's natural instincts, or trained instincts, I should say. So again, it's been used against BJJ guys a lot because wrestlers are getting that one-on-one because BJJ guys are so afraid of that hook. Now we got payback from the BJJ community to the wrestler community. So these are just some of the things I noticed, and the way that, if somebody's just watching or watching techniques, they'll say, oh, this was bad striking, or this was, why didn't he do this, why didn't he do that? And I think it's both had prepared pretty well for each other, and they had game plans. So, really the guard is a great one. I'd love to see more people, using that rather than the, every MMA academy, feet on the hips, knees, push away, get back to your feet. If you can't push away, walk to the cage, stand up. And you're seeing a lot of them these days starting to get mauled by wrestlers trying to do that, because even if you get away with it, you're taking damage the whole time. If I'm here, trying to constantly keep his weight off me the whole time, he's just throwing punches here. I'm trying to get him away, and every time I go, I kick, here. Okay, so it's really important that I need to either get his weight, on his hands here, or if I can't, I need to get somehow start to unbalance him here so I can start to work. Okay, so anyway, I really hope that both fighters are allowed to keep fighting, because I really find their styles fascinating and a lot to learn from, versus again just mediocre to everything kind of guys. And thanks, Derek.